Welcome back. It's part 2 of Who's Who in Your Closing. If you haven't seen the first video, I go through all of the parties involved in a closing that don't physically sit at the table with you at your closing. So if you haven't seen it, make sure you go back and watch that. But today we are going to talk about the parties that sit right there with you at the closing during your signing appointment. I'm Tiffany Weber. I'm a real estate attorney in Mooresville, North Carolina. So let's dive in. All right, here's my handy dandy visual aid, courtesy of my husband, Ryan, and this is his table. So let's see. We're just gonna start ripping them off. First, we have the lender. So I talked about some of the people that work for the lender in the prior video, but the lender is the institution that has agreed to let you borrow money from them so that you can purchase the home. So if you are agreeing to pay $100,000 for a house, but you only have $20,000 that you can use for a down payment, the other $80,000 has to come from somewhere. All right. Next, we have seller's agent, or sometimes called the listing agent. Side note, it can get very confusing because in North Carolina, a lot of the documents call the seller's agent the listing agent and the buyer's agent the selling agent. So you can imagine when people are calling in and you don't hear exactly what they're saying. I'm the selling agent. So you're the seller's agent? No, I'm the selling agent. So I digress. But the seller's agent or listing agent is the person that has helped the seller advertise the property for sale and has negotiated on their behalf with the buyer's agent or the buyer if they did not have an agent to come to terms on the purchase price, the earnest money, the due diligence, the closing date, the due diligence date. The listing agent handles all of that. So they're also helping the seller prepare the home by giving them guidance of, okay, maybe you make these repairs before we put it on the market. This is how I recommend that you stage it. These are what the comps say for maybe this is how we decide to price the property, and then getting the listing photos ready and getting the property advertised. And of course, they're fielding lots of calls and questions from interested buyers and buyers agents to help get the property under contract. Now, I'm going to take a guess that over here is the buyer's agent. Let's see if I'm right. I am. So this is the buyer's agent. And the buyer's agent is, or selling agent in the contract, is representing the purchaser. And while the listing agent goes into a listing agreement with the seller for a particular property, the buyer's agent often goes into an agency agreement with the buyer saying, I'm going to represent you in the purchase of a home. So if you buy a home during a certain time period, I'm your agent for that. I'll receive a commission for representing you in that process. So most often, the buyer's agent is not just, I'm going to help you buy 123 Main Street and that's it. Typically, it's buyer, I am going to help you buy your home wherever that may be during this time period. All right. Next, we have attorney. That's me. So attorney, what we do is we represent buyers in transactions most often, but we can represent sellers if we're only doing seller documents and the closing is happening at another place. But we are making sure that the buyer receives clear title to the property. So that's by searching the title for the required time period. You'll see that in your engagement letter, whether that's from updating from a prior search or if it has to be for a longer period of time. And in addition to that, the closing attorney's office is gathering all of the necessary documentation from all of these people that you saw on this sheet, plus anybody from the prior video that needs to provide documents like the surveyor or the homeowner's insurance or the title insurance company. We're working with all of those parties to make sure that all of the necessary documents are received before closing and can be executed at the closing table. All right, next we have seller. So this is the owner of the property. I think this one's an easy one. This is the person or persons or entity that owns the property that the buyer is buying. And they are necessary to execute any conveyance documents, the settlement statement. They execute a lien waiver to say that any work that's been done on the property within the time that a lien can be placed on the property has been paid for, and if not, they'll indemnify and defend the buyer from any claims of lien. But most importantly is making sure that all of the owners of the property join in the conveyance documents. That's usually pretty simple, but that can get complicated when there are lots of heirs of an estate. So there could be anywhere from 1 to 2 sellers typically in a closing to 13, 20, depends on how many heirs there are. And then lastly, I would say the most important person involved in this is the buyer, because without the buyer wanting to purchase the property, none of the other people sit at the table. So the buyer is the person that has agreed to buy the property for a certain price, and this is the person that we're all trying to protect in the transaction to make sure that they get what they need, which is clear title to the property they said they wanted to buy, funding from the lender to pay the seller. And then in the other corners of the room, there's kids. In my closing table, or in my closing conference room, we have toys for the kids. So lots of kids, because they're excited too. They want to participate. Dogs, we're dog friendly. So, these are the people that you will see at your closing table when you're purchasing property. Like I said, there is another video explaining all of the people that help these parties behind the scenes that you may not ever talk to or interact with, but they're still involved in helping you get to the finish line. So make sure you go watch that. And hopefully this helped you understand all of the players involved in making sure you can purchase your property. Again, I'm Tiffany Weber, real estate attorney in Mooresville, North Carolina, and I'll see you in the next video.